Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to Whatever the Weather, another Arsenal podcast. Listener, you join us in the deep, dark depths of the international break. Happily, the final one until March. I am joined by Keith
Hello.
and by James.
Hello.
We thought, thought we'd try something different with the podcast this week, being that there are Arsenal games. I thought we'd begin with this was about a week ago now, but the departure of Edu, which was really unexpected.
Yeah, massively took us all by surprise. Not least because he went to join Nottingham Forest.
Did he actually join
not,
Forest?
Not quite Nottingham Forest, but
he joined the group associated. So
the Marinakis
2024.
group. Yeah, it wasn't on my bingo card, I have to say. I'm not hugely surprised with Edu. I think he's quite an ambitious man. I think having read a lot of the stuff since the departure, the fallout, obviously people forget, he left what would have been probably as a proud Brazilian, his dream job when he left the Brazil national team set up to come and join Arsenal in the first place. Obviously, he's left Arsenal before as a player. He left us when we were invincible champions. He went on a Bosman to Valencia, so he has got it in him to do the move, which is best for him. I think it would appear that he was quite peeved that he was overlooked for the CEO role that was left by Vinay and taken up by Tim Garlick. But yeah, nonetheless, it was quite a shock. I think, particularly the timing of it. It feels like we're in the middle of a project that's obviously we've had two successive seasons of challenging for the title. It feels like we're in a really strong position. He's had a decent summer. Yeah, it just feels like a strange time to move on.
Well, the Edu move was a bit surprising to say the least. There were some rumours a few months ago about it. Like, it must have been, I think Ornstein might have said something about 3 months ago about it, but it died down after that. Um, Obviously, he's moving. He's announced the move now because he obviously wants to get in place by next summer. So he has to give a 6 month notice period. So he had to do it now or any this month really. Otherwise, he couldn't be in place before June next year. So he's obviously was talking to the owner of Forest, and then they've obviously agreed to deal. And suddenly he's like, "Oh, I've got to do it now!" Like because he was at the Newcastle game, he attended in person the Newcastle game, so he was, and then it broke after that. So it must have been a very quick decision. Eddie's thought, I've got to announce it now, I can't, or I won't be in place for next summer.
So you don't think it was a long time coming then? You think it was
It's the biggest surprise of all. I think he might have been approached in the summer, didn't happen for whatever reason, and then Eddie's agreed to deal last minute, and Marinakis has obviously apparently trebled his wages, offered lots of power. He's not going to be like living in Nottingham. He's going to be living in London. He's going to be flying about everywhere. Apparently, he's really keen to get involved in that multi-club thing. Like, and Arsenal were linked to doing something bang another club, but 2 years ago it didn't happen. So apparently, he believes in that multi-club concept, like in Brazilian players, pathways and stuff, and etc. etc. So it's still a surprise. It's Forest. But I just think it's going to be like what Eddie thinks. I think what Eddie's going to think is I'll be there for a year or two, show I'm good at it, and then I can go to a bigger multi-club system like City or something, or a bigger multi-club system.
Well,
Chelsea.
the multi-club system is really, but that's how Girona came through, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
In La
Yeah.
Liga, like because I remember like thinking like, oh man, it's like because Girona were like a tiny club, and then they sort of came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, they're doing a Leicester, and I spoke to Spanish friends about it, and they're like, no, they're just part of this multi-club system that
Yeah.
has allowed them to
Yeah.
to generate enough money to get there. Yeah.
So what I
Do you
think,
not find it a bit strange though? Because are we not part of a multi-club system, albeit in different sports, as part of Cronky Sports
Ah.
Enterprises with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
I
Colorado
think they
Rapids?
very
Mm.
much they're owned by the same people, but they very much don't share anything. I don't think they like
Yeah, I mean, I know you. I joke. Obviously, I know the multi-club model. Obviously, Watford have got it with Udinese, and obviously the City Group that we spoke about. I think Chelsea, Clearlake, Capital have got a couple of teams. I think Vitesse, and then
Bordeaux
Ineos. Don't Ineos own
and
a French club? Is it Lille?
Nice,
Nice.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
sorry. Yeah. So
and
yeah,
and a Belgian club as well.
strange stuff, isn't it? It's strange because what happens when they play each other in European competition? Because I know in the past that couldn't happen, but now what? So what if Girona play Man City? That's just allowed, is it? Or like,
They're all club tied, James. They're all club.
yeah,
They're all
I think
yeah, I
cup
find
tied
it
how they
odd.
rather.
get around
Sorry.
it,
I don't know
how
how they
they
get
get
around
around
it.
it is they people that work are involved in teams can't play each other if they got like personnel that work for both teams. So
Okay.
if like
So
Chelsea,
if they're run as individual clubs, so I suppose like
yeah,
the Red Bull model. So if Salzburg played Red Bull Leipzig, because they've got different sporting directors,
yeah,
different managers, players, it's fine.
Mm.
yeah,
Even though the overall owning group is the same, it's
yes. That's my
okay.
understanding of it.
How bizarre.
Mm.
How bizarre.
I do find it interesting you talk about like the Kroenke group in terms of okay, it's kind of a multi-club model, but obviously the
Yeah, I mean, I was being a bit.
it's like yeah, no, I know you weren't I know you were being a bit glib, but like even so, it's still kind of funny, like, yeah, because
Yeah, the whole
we're
thing.
gonna start signing American football
I mean, look,
players,
I think the thing that probably shocks a lot of people with Arsenal and with Edu is that Edu, he's someone that had quite deep-rooted links to the club. As obviously he was an invincible,
Mm,
played for the club. Um, you know, he from the Amazon documentary, he took very seriously the whole thing about walking through players when they join, about the history of the club, and the player number, like the legacy number, which is something that I think a lot of clubs do now. I know England do it. Gareth Southgate was a big fan of that, making you feel like you're standing on the shoulder of giants and all this kind of thing, and the prestige that comes with that. And it felt like he's got a strong relationship with Mikel. um, Obviously, Edu, when he was brought into the club, came in with strong links with Raul Sanyehi, and he managed to avoid all of that when the mud finally came with that. He avoided all of that, and he stayed within Raul. And it's strange to me that you'd go through that, get yourself to a relative position of strength, and albeit, yeah, I know, I look, I get he's obviously an ambitious man and wanted to be CEO, but it wasn't like he had a bad job, and I can't imagine he was badly paid for it. Um, and you're at a club that's aiming to win the league or the Champions League. All right, we haven't done it yet, but aiming to do that, to take what seems like albeit a multi-club model, clubs that have got they're a long, long way. Olympiacos, Nottingham Forest, and is it Rio Ave are a long, long way away from competing where Arsenal are. It
Mm.
just that's the bit that I think probably comes across as being a bit strange.
Like I said, I think he's just using it as a stepping stone. He'd be there for maybe 3 years, get lots of experience. Apparently, Boris are looking to buy another club. Boris's owner is looking to buy another club,
mm,
and Eddie apparently wants to be involved in actually buying a club, like
mm.
from the
Yeah.
get-go,
I
so he
mean,
can get
maybe
that experience.
maybe he just maybe he just wants the challenge.
Yeah, that's
I
also
mean, there's I don't
that's
you can take the cynical view and say he's doing it entirely for money, and I'm not suggesting that there
I don't
isn't
think
a
that. I
large.
don't think
I
he
don't
is.
think there's a large part. I don't. Obviously it's going to be a significant part of it, but
Well,
What Keith says
he's
makes sense. If
well,
he putting himself in the shop window for a Barcelona, Real Madrid, something like that,
mm,
like a mega money move. I mean, you
and
look at one of the things. Sorry, I was going to say is that it would appear that in terms of club ownership and stuff like that, if you look at the American model, you think David Beckham got his share of a franchise for what? I think they valued it at like 150 million or something, and now they think his share could be worth like 1.5 billion.
well,
And American sport is littered with that anyway, with owners who
mm,
their money's got.
yeah.
I think
I think
Michael Jordan as well.
yeah,
His
he's very
his
smart.
yeah his value went through the roof. I think a lot of people want to get on that sort of gravy train, don't they?
I
Mm,
think also I do. It's all about he wanted eventually. Actually, apparently he wasn't happy that he wasn't consulted were interviewed to be the new CEO of Arsenal, and he wanted more power and like to be the CEO of Arsenal. That's basically what he wanted, like take over from Finlay. But when he wasn't consulted about that, Penny was annoyed about that, and that's why he got promoted to sporting director when he was originally just his job was just about the men's football side. Then he got promoted to sports director, which had an overview of the women's team and the academy team as well.
Mm.
And that's he wanted basically more power and responsibility. That's what's happened here.
So yeah, Keith, to expand on that, and I've thought about this recently. Like, it's do we really need a director of football? I mean, Wenger always said that he thought it was a stupid role.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so
I
sure.
think in the modern game, the days of being an all-powerful manager, they're long gone. There's just too much to be involved in. Um, Arsene showed that by the end. Apparently, one of the quotes. It's funny because we'll end up talking about Martin Keown a little bit, at his book signing. But I went to a Q&A with him, and he said there was a point towards the latter days of Arsenal where he was just too involved. He was even being
Mm.
consulted on what sort of food they served in the directors' boxes. He was just at every board meeting. It was too much. Whereas he should have been concentrating on making the team
Yeah.
the very best they could have been. I've heard a couple of things. To Keith's point, with the CEO, I'd heard that that the Cronkies had lined up Richard Garlick long before um, Vinay had stepped down. Vinay made it quite clear when he went into the role. He although he was an Arsenal fan, he was not a football man. And they sought out Richard Garlick from the Premier League, and got him embedded in the club. And then obviously they've promoted him upwards. But yeah, I've also read that Arsenal were actually that what we're looking at is kind of like a three-headed role where someone looks after the academy, so like Per does, um, that we have someone who looks after the women's team as an independent. So whereas Edu looked after a sporting director, looked after the academy, women's team and men's team, that you'd separate it. So um, we'd get someone in who potentially could look after the women's development from bottom to top. Obviously, Jonas Eidevall has resigned, and we still haven't got a full-time women's coach. Renee Slagers, I think I've pronounced that right. I'm not sure.
Mm. She's doing
Um,
a great
She's
job.
doing really well.
it's
Yeah,
taken
yeah,
over and has
yeah.
done really well on an
Mm.
interim basis, but it's there's a small pool to take from in the women's game. I know that there's not a lot of administrators and coaches there. So where you go with that, but it's a great opportunity for someone. You think someone like Eni Aluko, although not particularly entrenched in Arsenal, but someone who's a qualified lawyer, for example. So where the
Mm.
women's game had a lot of people that were part time, I'm sure there's got to be someone there, particularly with Arsenal links. You think what a huge draw Arsenal are in the women's game.
Mm.
If not one of the biggest, if not the biggest club in women's football, we're probably one of the biggest clubs in women's football globally. I'm talking about, not just
Mm.
Mm.
not just in England, and they've massively underachieved recently. So they were looking at something to do with that, and then someone again to work very closely with the men's team, and it to be kind of a three-pronged thing that they report into the CEO, which is Richard Garlick. So I think it's a natural movement for Edu to go. Maybe I do see that. I do think someone does need to come in. I think we don't want to go back down the even Gazidis route where Arsene had a big part in his appointment, and then even then became quite toothless towards the end.
Mm.
He threw Arsene under the bus. Arsene threw him under the bus. It just
Mm.
got very messy.
Yeah.
You think the glory days with Arsene when we had David Dean and they would really bounce off each other and they would hold each other to account. And now that's kind of gone. And I think with Mikel, don't forget Mikel was appointed as a head coach, won the FA Cup, demanded to be changed to manager.
Mm.
Um, and he's a
Oh,
manager.
did he demanded it? I
Demanded
don't.
that as part of his contract
I
change.
don't
Yeah.
imagine Mikhail demanding
So
anything.
so
Like,
Mikel wanted to have power, or he wanted to have say in transfers.
mm.
Um, and the first transfer window that didn't go well because Mikel really went out on a limb to get Willian. So
Oh
that
dear.
didn't
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
work
yeah,
out well, did it? But Mikel really wanted to have. We have got, and I know there's going to be a lot of people that would listen to this, or anti-Arsenal people. Quite frankly, let me just say this again: fuck them. We have got we have
Amen
got
to
one of
that.
the we have got one of the best young head coaches in world football. I don't
Mm.
care that he's only won one FA Cup in 5 years and he spent half a billion. Blah 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 blah. Stick your bullshit up your ass, mate. Um, we have got one of the best young head coaches in world football, and we need him to be at his best, and that is to be challenged and provoked thought of, and whatever else. And you think of the people that have been around Pep
Yeah,
Guardiola, he hasn't just had a load of yes men.
Mm.
He's had sporting directors. He was challenged quite a lot at Bayern. Um, Ultimately, Bayern apparently weren't too unhappy to see him go. They thought that cycle would come to an end because it didn't deliver a European Cup. He's worked with Cheeky Bergerstein at Man City, and now they've brought in Hugo Viana, who's going to join in the summer. So they've got people there that will look and
yeah,
kind of pull different things out, not necessarily stepping on Guardiola's toes. I'm not saying that, and equally with Pep, with
Mm.
Mikel, you don't want someone to come in and kind of clip his wings, but you don't want him just riding roughshod over the
yeah.
club. I think we need
No,
someone
I, I
that
would
would be a concern, I think.
I would
Yeah.
say that James has pretty much summed up why we need a um director of
Director of
football.
football.
Thank you very
Yeah,
Mm.
much.
and my thing I would add to that is if we go back to the summer of when we only signed
2015.
2015, when we only signed Peter Cech, would a sporting director, a good sporting director who had his own power base at the club, would he be put up with that?
Do you know
No.
what? I can even so
So I would
I'm gonna
think,
allude on that a little bit, Keith.
Mm.
So apparently, so one of the seasons, so I didn't know this. So Martin Keown, so listener, I went to the AST Arsenal Supporters Trust, did a meeting, a 20-year anniversary meeting last Monday, which was basically a
Oh,
Q&A with Martin Keown, basically a plugged book signing, and Loren, so a couple of Invincibles there, and
oh,
Martin spoke.
Invincibles.
Yeah, it was great to me. It was a really good evening, held at the Royal Oak Suite in at the Emirates. It was
Mm.
a great event. Um, and yeah, and Martin spoke so passionately and so enthusiastically about the club, about his love of Arsene Wenger. But I mean, not as much as his love about Arsene Wenger, but his love of Arsenal. He would do anything for the club, and really, really spoke passionately. And he said he actually challenged Arsene. And if you listen to his audio book or you actually read the book, which I can highly recommend, I have to say, one of the better Arsenal books, particularly for an ex-player.
Mm.
Um, where they can be quite drab. But he really kind of said that he actually openly challenged Arsene. He was on the coaching staff of the team when we got to the Champions League final in 2006. He stepped away because he felt he was stepping on Pat Rice's toes. Said he went back again in I think 2009 or 10, and challenged Arsene in a few ways. But he remembers a conversation where he said that Arsene was dilly dallying in I think it was 2008 about whether to re-sign Nicolas Anelka or not,
oh,
and he said that
Mhm.
basically we were near the top of the league at that time
yeah,
in the January, and Arsene had the opportunity to sign Nicholas Anelka and Jonathan Woodgate, and I think Gary Cahill, I think was the other one that was, and basically Arsene dithered over all three, and we didn't end up with either of them. Um, Cahill and Anelka both went to Chelsea, won the
did
league.
wonders.
Jonathan Woodgate went to Spurs, won the League Cup. I mean,
I mean, Jonathan Woodgate
less said
was
about him,
very
the better,
injury,
but
very, very
very
injury
injury prone.
prone.
But I think
But
the point was he just said that Arsene needed that little push over the edge, that he was kind of 70% there.
Mm.
But then he thought back on himself and thought, no, never go back. Don't redo it. It'll upset the apple cart. Blah blah
also,
blah.
Wenger didn't like spending too much money.
Yeah,
He
and it
treated
was just a case where he had to
money,
just let
club's
his
money as his own. And
yeah, he should have swallowed his pride a little bit, realized that he had,
Mm.
Nicholas Anelka, let's be honest, I mean, a strange player to look back on his career. You think,
Mate.
but I think most people, for someone, the majority of his career was at Chelsea. And look, he achieved a lot in his career, and I think he could have achieved a lot more. But people still look back to his early days at Arsenal as being like the pinnacle of his career when he was that exciting, raw
Mm.
striker. And I think if we'd have got him back, I just refuse to believe that Arsenal wouldn't have got something out of him again.
yeah,
Um, and it's just a shame that he had that. And I think definitely had David Dean been there to that point that we're talking about with as Keith mentions, 2015, um, something there would have happened, that have
yeah,
pushed that over the edge. And Arsene just lost that. He didn't have that person there who kind of challenged him in the right ways and put pressure on him or provoke thought from him. And I think you
yeah,
don't want that would be my worries. I just don't want Mikel going down the same route where
yeah,
he's doing things on a whim. No, it
Mm.
needs to be accountable. He's ultimately Mikel, as Arsene was, were employees of the football club. it, despite what's, there was a point where it maybe did become a little bit Arsenal FC rather than
Mm.
Arsenal FC.
That's completely
Um,
true.
Yeah,
and that's
I'm
such a
guessing.
shame because,
Mm.
and again, sorry, just to
So,
go on continue my little monologue, um, about the Martin Keown, but that's something in it where I think, Arsene was such a huge character in the history of this football club, done so many amazing, incredible things. And the fact is that now, by his own admission, he's not connected in any way to Arsenal. I know he's got a statue outside the stadium, but he barely goes there. We've lost this great mind who loved the club, and we've lost it because it was just something that was just allowed just to drift. Either he didn't have the ruthlessness to get rid of a Riziki or a Diaby or even a Jack Wilshere and kind of go again, or maybe he felt he couldn't find the same quality. And maybe, you look at the depth charts that Man City had, Man United had, Chelsea had, we couldn't really compete with that, even Liverpool towards the end. Um, Obviously, a big part of that was building the stadium. And there's obviously this news has come out this week in a very slow international week that we're looking at expanding the stadium. I know that is not something that's realistically on the cards. I know that we can potentially expand the stadium by about 8,000 seats because they can.
mm,
And to anyone who's been to the Emirates will know that this is actually factual, is that you can reduce each seat by an inch and it would allow the capacity to go up to about
mm.
68,000. Um,
Yeah, that's
there's
kind
all
of it.
issues with
That's
like
the
sight lines and the
only
way it's been
way.
drawn.
That's the
Well,
only
no,
way.
Is it?
It is the
they've
only
hemmed
way.
Is
they've
it?
hemmed they've hemmed themselves into such a position because dealing with local councils and in London is very difficult. And obviously you've got the transport situation as well. Um, Look, I suppose there is like in anything in life, if you throw enough money at it, you can do what you want, right?
Well, the
Um,
Conquest did that with this LA Rams stadium.
in
Yes,
a
but
market that's much more open to build, I think in
and
London
also
it's
Councils need my point is councils need money. Conquest have got a lot of it. Um, Lots of local businesses would be more than happy to have an extra 20,000 people each match
mm,
day. And
I
councils, like I said, let me finish. Councils need the money, and there's enough good architects in the world. You build bridges and nuclear reactors and massive things.
I
My
go and get the people who built the whole
no,
hydrogen
but
collider.
my point is, it's not mission impossible to build 20, 15,000 extra seats at the stadium. It's not impossible.
The
It's
not. I mean, I
doable.
information
like the fact you mentioned the Rams there because the Rams Stadium is like most of it's
it
underground,
was
isn't
built
it?
on wasteland, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, well, so was the
My
Emirates.
point still stands. With
Yeah.
enough money,
But
enough
The thing,
will, it can be done.
look, as I said, I totally get your point, and yes, I cannot argue. If you throw enough money at anything, then anything is possible. We know that. But realistically, you're talking about businessmen here.
mm,
You
They
you would
won't want
effectively
to.
have to
They
knock the
won't,
stadium down to rebuild it because it's
no,
built over
mate,
a suspension
one
over a
quarter of
car
it
park.
maybe.
It's built over a suspension over a car park, so you're it's very difficult what you can do.
mm,
The two best ways they could expand, well, the three best ways they could expand the capacity in the stadium would be one would be to take the roof off. Remember, they didn't get planning permit. Remember that the Emirates Stadium is pretty much a carbon copy of Benfica's Stadium of Light. If you look at
mm.
Benfica's stadium, the roof arches upwards. If you look at the Emirates, it slopes in. That's a key part of the planning.
Ours was meant to go upwards.
Yeah, exactly. It was meant to be
Yeah.
exactly the same,
Mm-hmm.
with the potential that it could even have a dome closing roof on it. It was
Mm-hmm.
first designed by Norman Foster Associates, but they did the swooping in suspended model to appease councils about the London skyline. So just getting that was difficult enough, but they could effectively pop the roof on the gaff and build up. So there is an opportunity in that. You could potentially build over a railway. You've seen other stadiums have done that.
Mm.
Ajax, Atletico Madrid have built tunnels.
Metropolitano,
They've
yeah,
built tunnels and stuff, so you can
yeah.
do, well, not the Metropolitano, the previous stadium.
Mm.
Uh,
Oh, right, yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. You could do stuff like that. So there's an opportunity there. Podium level, you could potentially expand that. Um, they can't dig down. As I said, legitimately, the point of putting extra seats in place is a legitimate thing. When Arsenal built the stadium, they did that knowingly. because they had an issue with the councils. They did put extra wide seats in because of that reason. They knew they could get the capacity up.
Walk. You're
It's a
very
long way
upset,
to do that.
you
So to
know.
get people in and out of the
Yeah.
ground, it's not as easy.
Mm,
You're then looking at, do you want to, this is what the owners of Man United are faced with is do you try and reconfigure and rebuild a stadium that's already been built, or is it cheaper just to knock it down, start again, or is it cheaper still just to build somewhere else completely?
mm.
And then you're getting into like the King's Cross territory and they're moving out of Islington. And no one
Yeah.
really wants to do that. So
No,
I
no.
I
And
think
actually, I think Arsenal were very lucky with the stadium move, being that, it
massively. And
literally like
I
just
think
down the road.
the
Like,
other thing
I
the
mean,
other thing, sorry,
Everton
Graham.
haven't Everton just demolished their old stadium they
Well, no,
built.
Everton are going to build on the family dot, but that very similar situation. They couldn't expand or do anything with Goodison, or they weren't allowed
Mm,
to. The
mm,
Liverpool City Council is very peculiar because it seems they've moved mountains for Liverpool, but not for Everton. But that's just the outside looking. I don't know the actual mechanics behind it. The other thing, obviously, people that talk about with Arsenal is potentially making the whole lower bowl suitable for safe standing. But again, there's issues with sight lines. There's issues with the width of exits and entrance points as well. So it becomes a safety issue. So
mm,
there's a lot of hurdles to overcome. I think with Arsenal, the two likeliest things that we'll do in terms of getting extra revenue out of the place would be to revamp podium level. They spoke about
mm,
making that like a destination point. And like anyone who's been there will know what that means. So, making that a bit more user friendly. Um, and there's a higher chance they'd improve the offering in the concourses. And then, yeah, potentially, I do think they would look at doing something where they could downsize the seat size to squeeze a few more people in that way.
mm,
But then again, do Arsenal need an 80,000 seat stadium really? Is that going to make them that much more money? I'm not so sure. All the money comes from TV revenue. And let's be
mm.
honest, 5 years ago, we were struggling to sell out. I mean, Keith, you were with me. We were at some of those Europa League games. I mean, there was one particular game. We sat in literally four corners of the stadium. We just moved around depending as
Oh, yeah, that's
the
true.
half. So you think we struggled to sell those games,
Mm.
okay, yeah, we're making hay with the sun shining, but it's not going to be like that all the time. Football works in peaks and troughs, and
I actually kind
what's
of
great for business is an oversubscribed fan base. So
Mm. I
I
actually
don't
kind
know.
of agree with you. Like I kind of like this. I kind of like the size that the Emirates is. Um,
Well,
I'm
more
not. I'm
seats
not.
means I can get a ticket.
It would the idea of having the kind of like the new camp of London or something like that would be amazing. But you've got Wembley there, obviously Tottenham, Chelsea will get a new stadium at some point. You've got West Ham, Arsenal. You're competing with a lot of other clubs. I think 60,000 is a sensible number. But it's what you do with that, right? And I do think the Emirates it could be better. I think that we've spoken off the podcast before, but we should have a bit of a designated home end, and I do think they could reconfigure the North Bank a little bit to make that more unique as a home end to Arsenal. The
Mm.
podium level stuff, this we're talking about this now. The stadium's been open for 20 years. This should have happened years ago. Um, they could do much more around the ground to
So
make it more inviting for sure. Just
I
putting
think.
screens on and stuff like that.
I think it's a question of um quality rather than quantity. Like I really do. Just make the stadium. Just make it a better experience for fans who are attending.
That's what I mean.
They
It
can do
doesn't
that
necessarily.
and
We don't need
also
to have
add
80.
seats
We
as
don't need
well.
to have 80,000 fans.
Well, I
Like,
think it'd be nice to
it's
have it.
well,
Look, in an
More
ideal
people can see
world,
the
it's
game.
better to have
you
it
know,
than not. But I think realistically, I just can't see it happening. And I think to make the area around the stadium as good as it possibly can be and the best atmosphere it can be, and crucially, at a price point which doesn't exclude as many people, I think it would be a good thing to do. They're trying to open up the Emirates for the WSL games. Are they doing everything they can to get behind that? They're giving her. I don't know. I'm not as involved in that as I should do.
mm,
But that should be super accessible,
Hmm.
mm.
and the price point, it's great giving away tickets for a fiver, but if you're going to charge people £7 for a beer, do you know what I mean? And I know London pricing and so on and so forth, but there's got to be some sort of concession made
Mm.
for people. Could there be a loyalty point? If you're a season ticket holder or if you've attended 3 WSL games, could you get a free beer? Do you know what I mean? There could be little things done. There could always be
Mm.
more done, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
I just think the Conquest have got tons of money. They've been willing to spend it on stadiums in the past.
I can tell you one thing that the Cronkies would be better off spending. I can tell you one thing they'd be better off spending on
What?
a fucking
Striker.
striker.
Well, I'll go with
Oh,
that.
You spend 105 million pounds on a midfielder.
I
You spend
mean,
60 million on another midfielder. Come on, now's the time. A
why don't we
striker.
go for someone like Usman? I mean,
Well,
someone like Usman would have been
you tell
perfect.
me. You tell me.
Well, Napoli wanted too much money, but then in the end,
So we're going to build an extra 20,000 seats that we don't need.
what
You
are we
get the
talking
point.
about?
You get the point. I
My
think
point
my
is,
God.
as fans, let's be really honest, okay? I'm
Mm,
going to ask you a question here simply. What
mm.
would you rather? 20,000 more seats at the stadium or a Premier League trophy?
The latter, obviously. Come on.
20,000 seats or that elusive Champions League?
obviously, well, it depends.
This
I
is what I
mean,
mean.
Come on.
They've gone
what
so
if I
far
could
with
get a
the
season
team.
ticket?
Did you actually
That's what
say
we want.
it? Keith, did you actually say it
What
depends?
if
Keith,
I
you
could?
had a season
What?
ticket and gave it away. You've got no right to talk on this subject.
I'm
You
not getting
absolute
enough more.
heathen. They shouldn't have allowed people to buy multiple memberships in the first place. You've got,
Mm.
I think there was a story that someone had about 300 red memberships or something like that came out last year.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
you've
Yeah.
got all those people that have got, they've done this thing now with season tickets to be able to have the right to renew, you've got to have attended at least 20 games, which I
hmm
think is a good thing. Although a lot of
That's
people
a
just
very good
share
thing.
them, although a lot of people just share those around amongst themselves.
Mm. Yeah, but
Anyway,
as long
so
as it's used, that's the point, isn't it? It's
yeah, I
like,
mean, it
you
can
know, you're
be a
not
bit of
just
a
hoarding it and not going.
yeah.
Like,
I must say, as someone that goes and has got access to ticket or has had access to tickets, and whatever you want to call it, it can be a bit of a closed shop, but it's a bit of a
mm,
closed shop because we're good. Um,
yeah.
and as I said, 5 years ago, I remember getting an email. Um, I can't, I can't remember which game it was for, but it was definitely a Premier League game. It was the season when Unai, it was the season we actually went into lockdown, and it
Mm.
was friends and family, and it was buy tickets, and it was I could buy a ticket on my membership for friends and family who weren't even members. They were doing anything they could to get rid of tickets at
Oh,
that point.
wow.
So, do you know what I mean? You go through these spells. I just think
Mm,
it's that at the moment it's in sharp focus because the team's performing so well, and well done on
mm,
Mikel for getting us in that position.
absolutely.
I'm going to ask you both a question.
Go on.
I'm going to ask Keith this question first because
Okay.
this is a double-edged question. Can we win the league? Are we going to win the league?
Can we win the league? Yes. Are we going to win the league? Unfortunately, if I'm being honest, I don't think no. We can, of course, we can win the league. We If we can drop points, City can drop points. We can go on a big unbeaten which we need to do is a massive long unbeaten run, 20 games unbeaten. Can we do that? I don't know. We've still got quite a few injuries. Got another injury on Monday night with Trossard, no Sunday night, I should say. Um, yeah, I would love it. Be the best thing in the world, but I just don't think
So,
it's going to
to
happen.
expand on that, so I'm the thing I knew you were going to say. So I know that was a bit of a stupid question because I know we can win the league. What I should have asked is, do you think we're going to win the league? And if not, why not? Or and
My
that's
why
not
not?
like putting you
The
on the
why not
spot.
is we're 9 points behind Liverpool at the
You
moment,
think it's too far?
unfortunately. If it was
Your
City,
instinct is it's too
if it
far.
was City, I would say 100% yes. Liverpool, I'm like 70, 80% yes. If that makes sense.
So do you think we still have a bit of a chance?
A bit of a chance. Like, but you said to me, oh,
You're talking yourself out of it in and
Ah,
no.
it's great. You're
dude,
a
he is
typical
actually.
football fan. No, because I feel this. I feel like so. To me, to sum up for my position, I feel like we've got a chance. We've got no room for error at all. Like we have
Yeah,
to be almost faultless now. We've
yeah,
got to do what we
basically.
did. Yeah,
Yep.
We got, you say favourable, but it's been a very competitive league so far this
yeah.
season. The whole league's
Forest have no
very bunched
pushovers.
together.
Madly.
Liverpool being a bit of the outlier because they've only lost one game. I think if it was City, you would 9 points ahead. You go, that's over. It's, well, I'm still like, unfortunately, I think the league's over. I don't think we're gonna win it.
Hmm.
Just, I just think it's just too 9 points at this point of the season. And like James said, we would have to be pretty much prepared for the rest of the season. Could we do that? In theory, yes, but in practice, I just haven't seen enough from us this season to suggest that we can go on a 25 match unbeaten run.
Do you not do you not think there's a chance here that Arteta is doing that Pep thing? Just sort of slow down towards the towards Christmas and then just go for it
Well,
in the new
Tommy
year.
did that
I
last
mean,
year,
it's
didn't he?
like
Graham, I don't even know if it's even worth asking you because I know the answer. But Graham, go and tell us why we can win the league then, or why we will win the league.
hang on a second. You didn't actually ask me the first question.
Okay, Graham, do you think A, we can win the league, and B, will we win the league?
Um, we can, yeah, 100%.
I
Will
mean,
we?
the bit where I actually asked, can we win the league is a bit stupid. I apologise, listener, because clearly we can. There's enough points on the table. I
Yeah, I
think
mean,
even
come on,
fucking
man.
Ipswich can win the
We're not
league.
fucking.
But
No,
but
you fucking don't talk about the tractor boys like that. But
but
anyway,
yeah, do you
they're
think
going to
we'll win the
finish
league?
fourth. Okay, I said that. I said that in our predictions for the
Fourth from
league.
bottom at best.
Ah, yeah, you're probably right. Um, of course we can win the league. We're doing pretty well. It's so tight, man. It's like look at the top eight. It's mad.
I didn't expect Liverpool to be that good so far. I didn't think
hmm.
Liverpool would be this good this so far. That's the shock really because
You
you
think Liverpool being good is a shock?
no being this
Like,
good, being like
oh, I see.
9 points ahead of us,
Well, I suppose
4 points
so. I
ahead of
mean,
City.
yeah, but yeah, they are.
I
Yeah.
don't think they were great when they played us, and I think we were
No,
unlucky not to beat them.
we should have
Hmm.
won that day really.
Therefore, I think I that gives me hope to think that
Yes, we
we,
can
we,
win the
we
league,
can
and
win the
yes, I
league.
think we actually will win the league.
I
And I know that you think that that's an obvious thing that I always say because as I, until it's mathematically impossible, I still believe, man. Um, Look, we've got an interesting run of games coming up. Most for the most point for until January, we don't leave London. Like we have away games, but we're basically in London. So I don't know. I think those, from those games,
We
I think
need
we
a bit
can.
more luck with injuries.
Mm,
That's what we need. What we need now is
well,
more
I
luck with
mean,
injuries
I was gonna
and to start scoring goals again.
I was gonna bring in injuries actually. So we know that Ben White has had knee surgery. It's not ideal.
big blow,
He's going to be
big
out
big
for
blow.
and he's going to be out for about 12 weeks, 8 at least, I think.
You'd like to think that that means that either Tomiyasu is close,
Hmm.
or that they're confident that him and Zinchenko can have got a part to play. Because it puts a huge burden on Yuri and Timber's shoulders.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I presume is what at the moment on Saturday is that Arteta would start Timber right back and Calafiori or Zinchenko on left
What
back.
is the situation with Calafiori?
I'm not
Um,
sure. I think
I'm not sure.
I think he's meant to
they
be
said he
back
was they
soon.
said he was out for 12 weeks a few weeks ago.
No, they
So
said he was
it's
out
one
for
of those, isn't it?
a few weeks, didn't he?
Oh, really?
Wasn't
Oh, okay. I thought it was a
Arteta
longer
said he
injury.
wasn't out for months. It was more a weeks thing. So he might be back this week. He might be back in a week or two.
Well,
Although
as me
Arteta came out today and said that he basically lies and doesn't care. He'll say whatever he wants.
I mean, and
Um,
if I may say, I've been saying that for fucking ages. He just comes out and says whatever the fuck he likes. He's like, you've got to
Well,
admire,
good on
up as he
him.
goes
you've
along.
got to admire it to some degree. You know,
Why not?
I
Do
do
like
it.
think I
he's
do think
like,
as a paying customer, um, I should be entitled to know the state of fitness or the state of the club, to be honest. But yes, look, he's defending the club
Hmm,
and he's trying to do the right thing. Yeah, look, I get it.
yeah,
Um, no, to my point, I backed us and thought we would win the league this season, and I'm not going to change with that. But I just think there is no room for error whatsoever.
no,
Um, we've got to do what we did last season, beat Nottingham Forest and go on a run. Um, I do think two things that are going to be evidently clear this season. I think it's going to be highly likely we're going to have to beat Man City when they come to the Emirates, and we're probably going to
Mm,
have to beat Liverpool at Anfield. Um,
Yeah.
but you know what? I think if you want to win the league, maybe you should have to do that. So you know
yeah.
what? If that's what we've got to do, that's what we've got to do. But I think that might be how it goes. I'd be very surprised if Liverpool can keep this pace up all season long. Mo Salah has started like an absolute train. I don't. I mean, he's going to have. I mean, I said at the start of the season that I thought that Erling Haaland was going to drop a 45 goal masterclass, and he's sort of dried up since the last international break. Um, I can't, Mo Salah is going to do that the way he's playing, and I
Mm,
just can't see a 32-year-old is going to continue on that way all season. If he
Yeah.
does and he fires Liverpool to the title, you know what? Better fucking play to him.
yeah,
Well done.
respect to that.
You know,
Yeah.
you can't do much about that.
Mm.
Um, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Okay, yeah. So speaking about the upcoming games we have, so Forest at home on Saturday.
Hard game. If you
Mate,
said to me at the start of the season,
mm,
I thought, oh, easy win. I mean, they lost against Newcastle recently, but they can defend, they can score goals. Chris Ward is having a season of his life. It'd be a very hard game. I think Morgan Gibbs White's a very, very good player. I like him a
mm,
lot. He always seems to be making things happen for Forest. I think I don't know if he's actually suspended or not. He might be back for that game.
mm,
But it'd be a hard game. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like someone 2-1 to us.
I always think it's difficult when you're playing a team that is clearly very well organised anyway. Um, at the after an international break because they've had 2 weeks where a lot of their core of their squad haven't gone away for international games, and they can just focus on doing a job on Arsenal at the Emirates.
Yeah.
Um, early goal is key. Early
mm.
goal is key. I'm
I
hoping that Bukayo Saka has been nice and rested, as has Declan Rice. Um, Obviously they both missed out, and that they can
Oh
come in
God.
and yeah, and exactly, and they can come in and set the tone. But yeah, not an easy game. It's one of those ones. All that matters is to win.
Yeah.
mm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean,
And
like
and
for
and and I mean that in the sense of if it's an own goal in the 90th minute, who gives a fuck? Just win.
Well, I was just to say, yeah. So yeah, Forest are obviously a team in the ascendancy. I agree with Keith. I did not expect them to be where they are. It's kind of fun to see where they are. It's
Everyone talks
quite
about
good,
how much money
but
they spent,
mm,
and they've been crazy with the amount of signings they made, but it's worked for them. Funny
mm,
in a weird way
I would,
because they've got a
yeah,
good squad.
mm,
I think to be fair to them, and I always felt this, as a team that came up um via the playoffs, that didn't budget on getting promotion, that it was kind of like a real out of the blue thing. What choice did they have?
mm,
Yeah.
Because they were going straight back down, so they had to make loads of signings. So I don't,
yeah,
I think there was
It's
a lot of hand wringing. Oh, it's not fair. It's not fair. They spend loads of money. Well, what else are they meant to do?
mm,
I
What,
like the
just get
ambition.
relegated like Luton?
Yeah.
And you
I
know what
like
I
the
mean?
ambition. I mean, some of the signings, if you went through the list of them, I mean, it's been crazy amount of signings they've made. Like they sent Turner from us, and he was terrible for them. He's like the third
They
choice
rolled the
keeper
dice,
now.
didn't they? They
Yeah.
rolled the dice.
You know what? Credit to them, it's working for them. I mean, admittedly, they got a few points deductions along the way, but they definitely be in the Premier League next season, so they'd be more than happy. They'd be like they'd say, "Well, it's worked."
mm.
And if Eddie
And
in
now they've
charge,
got
will you
Edu.
be there? Will you be there on Saturday?
Now they've got Edu.
No, I doubt it, but
I don't know.
And they
So
gave Mikel COVID.
oh God, they
bastards.
did. Bastards. So a few days after that, we're playing Sporting away, Champions League.
No one
Oof.
gives a fuck about the Champions League. No one understands it. No one gets it. Um,
Oh my God,
do you know what the most
we do
interesting
this
thing
every
with that?
time.
The most
Yeah.
interesting thing with that is that we're facing Sporting without Ruben Amorim.
Oh, that's very true. That is very true.
Um,
Yeah.
that's the most interesting thing about that game. I think genuinely, as I sit here say this, of course it's a football match. You want to try and win it.
Mm,
Um, but like I said, I've said a couple of times, no one really knows the significance of the Champions League. I think the focus is really at the moment heavily on the Premier League.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next Premier League game is on Saturday the 30th, uh, away to West Ham.
Again, we should win that because West Ham have been terrible this season, but they're bound to sack their manager at some point and get a new manager bouncing.
West
And
Ham are the
this,
type of team you don't know what you're going to get from them, do you?
Mm.
exactly.
You just don't know what you're going to get from West Ham. That could be a game we could quite easily rock up and win 4-0. It could easily be the type of game we end up losing 1-0.
Mm.
Yeah. Because against when they beat United, first half United should have been 4-0 up. Second half, West Ham deservedly won the game. So it's like James said, it's like don't know what West Ham you're going to get.
Well,
Hard game.
it's interesting you mention United,
Another derby as well.
Keith, because we play Man United on the 4th of December
Oh, I dread that game.
at
Should
home, at
should
home,
absolutely wipe the floor with them.
dude. At home, I think easily.
But no one really. The thing is, yet again, United are the type of team that, to be really honest, a lot of the time you fall into the trap of playing the name Manchester United
Mm,
as opposed to playing the team
We've
that's in
done
front of
last few
you.
seasons.
yeah.
Exactly. And Man United v Arsenal always conjures up that kind of feeling and emotion. Um, I, who knows? Their new manager bounce is clearly going to happen. Um, he's got to start putting points on the board, and he'll know that. Um, not to say that he's going to be under pressure if they get a few dodgy results off the bat, because I think they've committed to a process. But I think his own ego and his own want of to try and turn that fucking oil line around is
Mm.
going to be to get a few points. And it would not
Oil
surprise me if they try and well, Ruben Amorim has got a couple of positive results against Arsenal for Sporting.
Mm.
Lest you forget in the Europa League a few years ago.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if they dig in and really make it difficult. So look, again, it's another Premier League game where you just don't know. At the moment, our form's not great, their form's not great. You could see it any which way, but it's a home
Mm.
game I'd expect us to win.
The next game on Sunday, the 8th of December, is against Fulham away.
Well, we know what happened last
And
season.
I'm actually dreading that game.
Understandable.
Mainly because of just no
Well,
Smith Rowe.
we're 1-0 down already. We are. We're
You know.
1-0 down already. Emil Smith Rowe
Yeah.
will score in that game. So
Oh,
we're
no, of
1-0
course he
down
will. Yeah,
already.
yeah.
There's a high
no doubt.
chance that Alex Iwobi will score, so we're 2-0 down.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
Reece Nelson can't
there's an
play
equally
for them.
high chance that Bandana will score in that game. I mean, just come on.
Well, I mean, Bernardo will have a man of the match style performance. Yeah, Fulham. Do you know what the league this season? Keith said it earlier on. It's a bit of a compressed league. There's a lot of good quality teams. We're actually starting to see. I remember having this conversation with someone about 3 years ago, where I said that the Premier League is becoming like Serie A in the 90s, where it's just stacked with quality. And like even the mid-table teams, like your Parmas and Fiorentinas, have got world-class players. You're starting to see that now. Fulham had João Palhinha, who obviously joined Bayern for a big fee in the summer. They've got a couple of RX players there as well. So they're a very handy team. They're having a pretty decent start to the season so far. Your boy Harry Wilson looks like he's starting to fulfill a bit of his potential as well. So
he's looking really good.
They've got a lot of good little technical players. If you catch them on a bad day, it could be difficult for us. If we catch them on again, the type of game that you could easily see us winning 4-0 or losing 2-1.
Okay, next up is Monaco at home.
You'd like to think we'd win our home games.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Don't know a huge amount about Monaco, but you'd like to think we'd win our home games.
Yeah.
I don't think they're packed with quality like they were a few years ago.
Yeah. I don't really know anything.
I think at the moment, to be really honest, because I'm kind of sitting on the fence with most of these picks, I think unless you're playing Southampton, there's no real kind of like nailed on victory at the moment at all, is there? I mean,
well,
a lot of people instantly thought we were going to get our asses taken to the cleaners when we played Chelsea. Because Chelsea were the form team. I actually thought we did well against Chelsea. I thought we've got a good battling point there. There's a lot of people that would have you believe that we're in the midst of a crisis and that we're struggling and we can't score goals and you know, all manner of different things. I think we that was a real gutsy performance at Chelsea. I actually think we had enough of that game to have won, and I think a lot of our fans would have left that Stamford Bridge feeling quite disappointed that we didn't win, and I think that's a positive sign as we
Mm,
go into this winter period. Look,
yeah.
what we've got to do, we've got to get ourselves to Boxing Day on a good winning run. Simple as that, right?